The Bloody Track by Jack Lucas. The sun rays seeping through the dew-covered trees drew gallons of sweat from Jake below. Green carpeted hills stretched for miles in every direction, their slopes carrying the echo of distant gunshots through the forest, ensuring that the sense of fear remained omnipresent. The scent of death choked Jake's lungs, filling his mouth and nose with what he was determined would not be his fate. His mud-coloured uniform had become unbearably itchy from weeks of trekking through the impenetrable New Guinea jungle. However, this was the least of his concerns. He knew that each step taken drew him closer to the barrels of Japanese rifles and further away from his family. The thought of home was a painful scar burned into his mind. He had left everyone who he had ever cared for and had ever cared for him back in Bathurst. His parents, brothers, cousins, uncles, and aunties, and sweet Olivia. How he missed the way her strikingly dark hair fell effortlessly over her shoulder. How her eyes always seemed to see into his soul. How her lips were full and pillowy when she would wake up to him next to him in the morning. He didn't know how long he would go without seeing her, but he was determined that he would. War would not destroy him. The farm had been deafeningly silent since Jake had left. Olivia tried not to think about him, but each morning she looked out a window to see the old kookaburra that had claimed the east side of the fence and instantly was brought back to the time she first met him. She had served him breakfast one morning at Porter's. His tall, masculine figure, emerald eyes, and strawberry blonde hair enticed her greatly. But it was Jake's smile that Olivia fell in love with. It always seemed to reassure her that he was there for her, no matter what. They spent the rest of the day together, falling further in love with each laugh the two shared. As the light faded behind surrounding mountains, Jake convinced Olivia to spend the night with him. They sat for hours by the fire, sharing their most hidden qualities. Just as they were about to go inside, Olivia noticed a small clump of feathers by the fence, looking dead except for the subtle twitch of a wing. Jake brought the bird inside, and using skills taught to him by his father, constructed a tiny splint from the handle of a broken fork. For 2 years now, the kookaburra sat on the east side, protecting the farm with its watchful eye, as if it felt an unpayable debt until the man who saved him died. As much as this memory pained her now, it comforted her having that kookaburra on the fence. It made Olivia feel that nothing bad would happen and he would be home soon. The news came as Jake settled in for a night of poker and banter on the outskirts of Iserva. One thing the Bloody Track had taught him was the importance of enjoying the little things in life, especially in an environment when life was always an uncertainty. The Japs are advancing fast. On your feet, lads. A wave of confusion immediately swept over the shoulders. No one thought Japan would advance so soon after Denkiki. Jake had heard stories of Japanese brutality, and it was a universal belief that it was better to be killed than taken to one of their camps. The fading light made it difficult to Jake to locate his rifle, despite him never leaving it more than 5 feet from his side. The evening became alive with fireworks of mountain guns and mortars, indicating the unwelcome arrival of the enemy. The worst of winter had passed through Bathurst. This year it was particularly bad. Yet still frost covered every field, hill, and lake. Olivia had always hated winter. It meant the meaningless strolls she and Jake always enjoyed were impossible. Instead, they would settle for long talks around the stone fireplace in his living room. However, with Jake gone, this winter felt particularly lonely. She hadn't even received a letter from him since late July, and even then it did little to comfort the ever-present butterflies that filled Olivia's stomach. Dear beloved, we only started the dreaded trek to Kokoda a week ago, and already me and all the other boys are exhausted. The humidity is like a giant kettle. It completely overwhelms you to the point you can't concentrate on anything except finding ways to stay cool. I always thought I'd be fine with the jungle from my time in the bush. But darling, nobody could have been ready for this. The Owen Stanley is proving too much for some. I count at least 10 who got sent back sick yesterday with the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels. Although I think that's a blessing for those boys. I've seen the injured men from the battle in Kokoda. Some were missing limbs, some with bandages over their faces, and some unconscious. Or dead. I'll write to you again soon. Always thinking of you. Love, Jake. It was now nearly September, and Olivia still read the letter every day, crying each time she did so. Her hopes were only lifted by the kookaburra, still watching over the farm, making sure nothing bad would happen. The first 2 days of fighting passed in a sleepless, disorganized blur of gunshots and grenades. Days and nights were hardly distinguishable. The constant explosions and fire kept the jungle alive at all times, like a devilish beast feeding on the stupidity of man. The sun rising on the third day marked 60 hours with no sleep for Jake. His dirt-caked fingers never dared leave the trigger, causing cramps all throughout his right forearm. Suddenly, hundreds of bullets were flying past Jake's head, their whistling causing an excruciating ring in his ears. He lunged behind a fallen tree, his heart pounding and barely processing what was going on. Violent, terrifying screams from the fast-approaching enemy masked every other sound. Jake swiftly looked out from behind his rotting wood cover and saw hundreds of Japs charging towards him. He glanced left and right, counting no more than 40 of his own. Finally making sense of the situation, Jake's thoughts instantly turned to Olivia, and all the things he had to look forward with her. Marriage, kids, retirement, and death. Everything Jake had ahead of him, he needed to be with Olivia. All his emotions boiled into a searing rage. He was not going to let anyone take that away from him. With one desperate cry, Jake heaved his rifle and rapidly fired, not thinking about anything except his burning passion to kill anything that would take him from his Olivia. Olivia reluctantly opened her eyes, craving a few extra minutes in her blanketed bed. She raised her head and looked out the window, instantly feeling a wave of dread that filled her eyes with tears. The kookaburra was nowhere to be seen.